Rights to freedom is dead. We're coming to get our check.
Black first, my brothers and my sisters, welcome to the Afro Elite YouTube channel. I'm your host, Afro Elite. Please make sure that you guys hit that like button, subscribe button, share button, all of that, because that helps with the reach and growth of the channel. We have a very special video collab. We have our good brother. This is the second time really he's come on this channel. We did him and our good brother Torian. We did a video collab kind of podcast thing, and this is going to be our first time introducing him on a video collab, just him and I. So without any further ado, I would like to bring up our good brother Cool Colas. Cool Colas, how are you, brother?
I'm pretty good. How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for coming. I think this is going to be a very good conversation we have here.
Most definitely.
So tell the audience who might not know, he has a good profile on his social media, which is in the description below. Is going to be in the description below. But tell us a little bit about yourself, like about your platform and the things that you talk about and things.
Yeah, most definitely. So as he said, my name is Cool Colas. For those of y'all who don't know me or first getting introduced to me, on social media, specifically on Instagram and on YouTube, I actually have my own channel where I talk about a lot of pro-Black media news, and also I break down different movies, television shows, and other televised media from the blurred perspective. But I also give a pro-Black spin on it. I talk about some of the issues that are going on, and I talk about the ways that we should be presented when we are on television and when we are seen in these different media depictions. So my main goal has been to talk about those things and then to try to analyze the way they show up. And actually, one thing I want to talk about too, I am coming out with a book in just a month from now. It's going to be called the Pro-Black Blurred Series, Exposing Anti-Black Media Tropes the Blurred Way. And with this book, I'm going into more detail from what I did with my platforms, where I talk about these different anti-Black media images and I relate them to real life. And then I also talk about my own experiences and how that relates to some of the images and depictions that I talk about.
Okay. So before we get into tonight's subject, because tonight's subject is really going to be about Black Americans in the school system, but so we have an understanding, when you say like our depictions in the media and the blurred perspective, can you give like an example of that, if you got, for the ones who haven't seen the podcast episode that we did?
Yeah, most definitely. So blurred means Black nerd. So basically what I'm trying to show is the difference between being a blurred and being a nerd. Because most of the time when you hear nerd, you're just thinking of somebody who is scientific, somebody who's into these whimsical interests and things like that. And that's all true. But the blurred experience is a little bit different because we have this ability to still be in tune with Black culture while still enjoying all of these different things. And it becomes its own culture. So when I say blurred culture, I'm referring to that and someone who embodies that. Now, when I'm talking about looking at these different images from the blurred perspective, I'm looking at like comic movies, television shows, and things like that, and breaking those down in a lot of the kind of racist and anti-Black images that show up there. And I do want to say this too, just because I'm breaking down the like nerdy things like the comic shows and things like that, that doesn't mean that I don't go into a lot of regular sitcoms and things like that and old school shows that we used to watch. So it's really covering that whole base.
Okay. And you say your book is coming out next month about it. So
that's right.
We'll definitely be looking forward to that and bringing you back on to talk about that and break that down.
Most definitely.
So I want to get into tonight's topic because I did an Instagram live about a video that I saw, and it was a poll, and it got a lot of interesting reactions. It's up on YouTube for the ones who haven't seen it. I am going to put it in the description just for reference. And in that conversation, it segued into really the education system and Black people in the education system. And that's when me and Kukolas, he was in a chat room and we were talking about America's education system and then the general flaws of it, and then how expounded those flaws are seen in the Black community. and we decided that that really needs to be its own video, its own live. So here we are today. You know, to start off, I would like to just say that when we talk about the education system, we're not just talking about K through 12. We're also talking about essentially college as well too.
Mm-hmm.
So starting off with kindergarten, because it really does start there. A lot of people will use some statistics and things like that Black people have a higher illiteracy rate than everybody else. And for us to use a little bit of history, coming out of slavery, a lot of people didn't know how to read. Now,
Mm-hmm.
Black people were forbidden from learning how to read, but the illiteracy rate in the world was pretty high at that time.
Mm-hmm.
We have to remember nowadays, pretty much everybody grows up learning how to read. Back in the day, reading was a skill. It was not something everybody could do. Black people completely transformed their illiteracy rate
Mm-hmm.
faster than any other demographic of people. Black people have made major strides in literacy and poetry and language arts and all of these things. So the argument that genetically that we can't keep up or culturally we can't keep up is completely false. It's a completely false anti-Black narrative
Mm-hmm.
that is meant to justify the oppression that we face, really.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No, I think that's very true. The one thing I wanted to say is that I think that there's a couple things that are going on, right? It's obviously what you're saying, which is that, you know, back in slavery, a lot of us weren't able to read, that we were like not allowed to read. So that kind of made it difficult for us to be like literate in that way. But I think the other part of it too is that, you know, some of these white supremacists, they be lying about like the statistics about, you know, how I guess inept we are. They lie about that. And I think a lot of the proof is in the things that we've been able to invent, you know, the things that we've been able to, you know, create on our own and whatnot. It shows that, you know, we have had the ability to just manufacture a lot of different things without the dominant society. If anything, we probably would be light years ahead if it wasn't for them. So it's already a lie for them to even say that from the get-go.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. All of the inventions, and we have to think, going back to the days of slavery, a lot of people make it seem as if the only things that we were ever doing, the literal only things we were ever doing is picking cotton and tobacco, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
We were building the roads because we have to remember the fact that America didn't really have roads at that point in time. So roads needed to be built, towns needed to be built, and all of that. It was enslaved Black Americans who were doing that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it is a very difficult and complicated task to build a town. You have to really think about how intelligent we were all the way back then, being banded from being able to read, being able to build towns.
Mm-hmm.
With running pipes and things like that. That takes a incredible level of intelligence, especially hundreds of years ago.
Yep.
Building the White House and building the Capitol building. These things, and then on top of all of the multiple inventions, as far as really inventing the light bulb, which a lot of people say was Thomas Edison, but Lewis Latimer he's the one who really did it.
Mm-hmm.
As far as inventions in even involving things like Elijah McCoy and inventing the elevator door, and just things like that at that time. So we have always been very intelligent and intuitive people. We've always been that way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that comes from really it's a projection. It's an insecurity. White supremacists are very insecure people.
Yep.
And they constantly need to do things to bring Black people down a notch, because internally they feel insecure. Internally, they feel insignificant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was going to say too, and the reality is that without us, they would not have been able to make a lot of these inventions that we've done as well too. Like, think about it. We were the innovators of agricultural engineering. Like, they like to say, oh, it's just peanut butter. You know, y'all just had peanut butter. But no, it was a whole lot more than that. We were like redoing the farms and all this other stuff. And then even when you just look at just technology today, I mean, a lot of people don't even know this. We actually invented the GIF, like the actual picture that you see. Like, a Black woman actually invented that. So, I mean, it's like, you know, in all time periods, we have been great innovators. So this idea that we're so illiterate and stupid and all this other stuff is just a total farce, because they know good and well they wouldn't be able to do it by themselves.
Yes. And when we look at certain instances today, because they'll bring up, oh, well, why is your schools failing today? Why are you not doing well in school today? And they blame essentially our culture. They blame the fatherlessness, and they'll blame things like that about our result in school systems today. But the thing is that we have to understand that we've been set back strategically. This has been planned, executed, and maintained for us to be set back. There are problems that happen to our community that set us back economically, educationally, socially, even sometimes, that don't happen to other communities. These communities, they'll come over and they'll be all like, okay, you're coming over with low literacy rates. We need to do something to help give you a platform, to help give you an economic base or educational base. We have what they call asylum seekers coming over illegally, and they're like, okay, we need to rush and get them into school. While in Chicago, they've shut down close to a dozen of schools with promises to reopen them, and they never do that. And you have a lot of these Black kids who still do need to go to school. Instead of it being divided, where you have an even amount of kids, a reasonable amount of kids in a classroom, now they're all bunched up together. You got 30, 40 kids in a single classroom. And then you're saying, okay, well, it's not the school's fault. It's not our fault. If the kids don't do well, it's all on the kids. But you don't see that when it comes to other children.
The one thing I wanted to say, just to kind of bring it back, and just thinking about the beginning issue of all this, it's kind of like what Neely Fuller Jr. said. There's all areas of activity are dominated by white supremacy. So in this case, that would mean education. So what that means is that it's already a corrupt system that doesn't allow anyone to learn in the way that they should learn, as far as life skills and things that are going to be helpful. But I think that it's even worse for Black students, because other little tricks and things like that are done in order for us, or like our kids, to not succeed. And I think one of the big things that I think is missing, and it doesn't seem like this is important, but it is knowing our true history. We don't even really have a confidence, or we don't build a confidence within ourselves, because our history is not really being taught. So it's already being dominated by people who don't like us. And then they're like not teaching us the things that we need to know even about ourselves. Because I think if a lot of our kids knew how great like we were, like our ancestors were and whatnot, instead of just it being a thing where they were enslaved and that was pretty much it, then we would be able to just kind of have more confidence in ourselves just to begin with. So I think that's one problem. But then I think it's also what you said, which is that some of the stuff that, you know, they're teaching, it's just I think that they're like doing these little tricks more so to kind of make it seem like we're stupid. And I think some of that is like putting us in like slow classes and like things like that. And there's other things that they do, but I think the point I'm trying to make though is that there's a lot that's done to try to stop Black kids from learning the way they need to.
You make a good point. Now, with that point being made, let me ask you, what would be some things that you feel like are important things to learn that the school system doesn't teach or teaches the opposite of?
Most definitely. So, the first thing that I think is really important, and this is something I think a lot of people are going to like kind of glaze over, is I think there needs to be some type of maybe self-awareness or discernment class. I don't know the best title for it, but what I'm articulating is something where you can learn what that kid specifically is good at, and then they can be taught based off of that thing that they excel in. I think you have to learn like kids should be able to learn their talents and the things that resonate with them and the things that they're good at. So I think that would be like the first thing that I would like to see, because you'll find that when a Black kid is able to tap into his or her abilities, then they can create something and innovate things the way that, you know, our ancestors have always done. So that's the first thing I would say. Second thing that I would say is that I think we need to be taught our true history. But again, that would have to be in a system that's not dominated by white supremacy, because they would never allow that to happen unless somebody was able to sneak that. The third thing is I think we need to learn like financial skills, like the things that would teach us financial literacy and things like that, which again, I think is hidden from us, you know, because they don't want us to really know that type of stuff. And then a bunch of life skills like, you know, hunting and fishing and things like that, things that our people need to know. And that if we did know, I think that they know that would pose a threat to their system. So I could go on and on, but I'm just giving a few things.
I think those are some pretty good examples. I think those are really good examples. Going back to your first example, as far as homing in on a skill, you know, back not too long ago, they used to have, and I said this during the Instagram live, they used to have a thing where in school they would have almost like different trades. And in different trades, you would be able to go and kind of to a degree get a skill. But even to better that, to improve on that, you might have certain students who are math whizzes, just great at math. I know some Black people, you just ask them any question and their brain is like a built-in calculator. They give you the correct answer almost instantly. And then you have some who are just okay at math. They can, you know, add, subtract, but they're just okay. They're average, you know. It would be better for a school to notice that, okay, this is a math quiz. Let's take this natural talent and perfect it. Let's polish it up. And he could do something, or she could do something phenomenal with that skill if we just, you know, gave it a boost. Now, with the kid that might not be good at math, that kid might be a genius when it comes to history, or when it comes to, you know, science or any other field. That person might be I forget, like a physical genius. That person might be a genius when it comes to sports or anything like that. So you can find that talent, and you can master that talent in that student. But that's not something we do. Just the system is everybody gets a very basic level. You don't really pay attention to the skills, so the skills are not really perfected in the prime years when the skills should be perfected.
You know, most definitely.
As far as us living in a system of white supremacy who doesn't teach you anything, this is something I've said for years. They like to teach you essentially, not like on the board where they're the teachers writing on the chalkboard, Black people, you know, you're worthless. They don't say that on the chalkboard, but just through the system and the interactions and all of these, just the psychological damage that's been done by teaching children that Columbus discovered America and Columbus was this great man. I remember one of my cousins said that she was years ago. She got in trouble with her school. I think she was like sent home early or got detention or something. She got in trouble at her school because her father told her that Columbus didn't discover America. So on Columbus Day, she was like, well, Columbus didn't discover America. And the teacher, who was white, no surprise, the teacher said that she was being disrespectful or disrupting class or something like that. And she was punished for that. And this also goes into the fact that Black students are statistically over punished.
Yeah. You know what? I wanted to tell a quick story now that you brought that up. I don't know if it's too soon to move into the whole college thing, but I just want to talk about an
Mhm.
experience that somebody I know had. So I have an acquaintance that I'm gonna keep them anonymous for a second, but they had an experience where they had I think it was like a racial studies, quote unquote, type of class, and I guess like it was taught by a white dude, right? And this person I'm talking about is black, and he's a foundation Black American, and he basically was talking about how in the class they made him basically stand up and talk about how he as a black man has a level of privilege that other groups of people don't have. Yeah, it was some silly shit. And so, so because like I guess like they had to recite like little I guess paragraphs from like these texts that they were reading, and that was something that was in there was because they were talking about I guess intersectionality, but then they kind of like did this thing where they were comparing like black people to other groups of people, and they were saying that there's some level of privilege that black men have in comparison to I think it was white women or something like that. And so
Oh.
when my man told me this story, I was just like, that's some racist shit right there. And I was asking, why'd you do it? Because like it, that's not something I would have been cool with doing or whatever. He told me he felt the same way, but he was afraid that he was going to lose his scholarship, like if he didn't comply. So I guess I bring that story up to say that I think there's also these feelings of like maybe there being like an ultimatum as well too if they don't comply with some of like the racist shit that they do in these schools. So I just want to bring that story up when you brought that up because that was real interesting to me.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's interesting about that
Mm-hmm.
is to digress a little bit.
Yeah.
When it comes to the privileges, it's a part of anti-blackness because what they try to do is they try to make a big blur and a
Mm-hmm.
confusion about the hierarchy of oppression.
Mm-hmm.
So what they'll do is, and I've seen videos about this. What they'll do is they'll say, "Well, white women have white privilege, but black men have male privilege." So there's this kind of thing where y'all kind of equal on different fields,
Yep.
and it blurs the line with the intersectionality and all of that talk. Blurs the line of really
Yeah.
the hierarchy of oppression because you can't. There's no logical way you can view a black man as being privileged to the degree a white woman is, or really at all, to be
Yeah.
very honest with you.
Right, exactly. And not to relate this to 'cause I know we're here to talk about like school and whatnot, but I see this even too like in different media depictions.
Mhm.
Like for example, have you seen the show Invincible before?
Yeah.
Okay. In season 2 of Invincible, there's like one episode where it's like this white girl and she's I guess dating this black dude. And I guess like they were trying to make this like feminist statement, like the black dude was oppressing like the white chick.
Yeah.
And that I was sitting there looking at this and I'm like, they threw that shit in on purpose. Cause it's like when I saw that, I'm like, I feel like nobody is also challenging these like little intersectional narratives that they try to pull, because if you really did, you could say, well, white women were slave owners too and they used to rape and do all types of bad stuff to black men. So I mean, what do you say to that when you're making these types of images? So I just want to bring that up because I think that it translates. Like I think a lot of times these areas of activity, like I talked about, they kind of connect.
Yeah, they do.
Mhm.
If we're going to use the term intersection, there is an intersection in these because the thing
Mhm.
is that and to say this one more, but then before we get on to the school,
Yeah.
remember the Central Park Karen who was all like, "Oh, the police, he's coming, and there's a black man, a big black man." Now she was weaponizing her whiteness against the
Yeah.
black man. So you can't say in that dynamic, and she knew full well that the police would have took her side. Had there
Mhm.
not been a video that he recorded, you wouldn't have known what happened. He might have wound up being shot and killed.
Mhm.
Is a high possibility of that.
Yep.
So they know, okay, there's no equivalent to
Mhm.
the privilege that white people have, but they try to blur this line and make this confusion, and they'll put these things out as if like for instance, the episode of Invincible, they'll
Yeah.
put these things out as if we're being socially conscious, but their consciousness is tainted, and it will only lead to confusion about the real system of white supremacy.
Yep. Yeah, most definitely. And also, too, I also wanted to add, then this goes back to the school thing. When it comes to affirmative action, they always try to say, oh, that's something that was supposed to be a handout for blacks. But then it's interesting because white women are the ones who actually take advantage of affirmative action the most anyway. So
exactly.
Is that?
I'm glad you brought affirmative action up. We're going to have to talk on that a little bit later.
Yeah, okay.
But I want to show the audience this thing right here. Before we go, we're not gonna go like read the whole thing, but let me just show the audience this right here. It says African Americans, which we use the term foundational Black Americans or Black Americans with that, but it says African Americans with college degrees are twice as likely to be unemployed as other graduates. So we're just gonna, I guess, read the first paragraph because we don't need to read the whole thing. Or maybe we just read this. A new study found that 12.4% of Black college graduates are unemployed. For all college graduates, the unemployment rate stood at just 5.6%. So it's really over twice as likely to be So with this, I know you have a story that you had. With this, we will, I guess this is a good way for us to segue into that. Because we don't necessarily need to read this whole thing. I think that's enough. But when people say things like, well, you're unemployed because you're underqualified, you're unemployed because you're underqualified, you don't apply yourself, you need to pull yourselves up by your own bootstraps. And if anything bad happens to you, it's your fault. And unfortunately, for too long, Black people have had the narrative of, if I go to college, I can make it out the hood. If I go to college, I'm good. If I graduate, I'm good. And we've had this almost fantasy where we felt like we thought that where college or a degree was like the key to success and the key to paradise. And unfortunately, it's not. And unfortunately, it leads a lot of Black people with a sense of major debt. It leaves Black people with a sense of major debt. And there's another thing that I wanted to show right here, right before we get into your situation, just to give a little bit of base to what we're discussing. So the audience knows that we're not just pulling this out of our hat. This right here, all right, let me put it on the screen. This right here shows a statistic of the student loans. It says right here, we're just going to read a little bit. Right here, the fact that borrowers of certain races and ethnicities face exponential obstacles in their quest for advanced education is universally accepted among academic financial specialists. Now, check this out. It says Black and African American bachelor degree holders have an average of $52,000 in student loan debt. That is above the median of the Black income, of the yearly Black income, 52,000.
By a nice bit too.
Yeah. So essentially, with that debt, they will never be able to catch up. They'll never be able to catch up with a debt like that. And then on top of that, Black Americans are twice as likely to be unemployed. So you have a higher chance of collecting debt that you won't really be able to pay off, but the colleges will go like, no, just do it. Trust me, you'll get a great job. And then if you graduate, because you still have to pay the debt if you didn't, but if you graduate, you don't have as high of a chance as your non-Black counterparts of being employed. At least in the field that you went to college in.
I did want to say something before I tell the story. I did want to say something to comment on what you were saying about like us going to college and kind of thinking that it's going to be this cash cow to a certain extent. So I have like a theory that I kind of created after kind of studying this happening over and over again to try to get some maybe understanding. What I think is happening is this thing that I would call the Black promised land or the Black utopia trope. And I'm going to explain what that is. I think that you have two different types of like older generation people. You have the like elders, and then you have old niggas. You know, as Jason Black says, he always talks about the old niggas. And the old niggas, which is a lot of our parents, a lot of the folks who are like in that baby boomer-ish generation, a lot of them sent their kids to college under the guys that they would possibly, you know, make a whole bunch of money and then live the quote unquote American dream, and then possibly come back and help the whole family too, and all this other stuff. So they're banking on this idea that you are going to go there and then make a success of yourself, and you'll figure it all out on your own, and that's pretty much it. And so it's like throwing you in the water and you don't really know how to swim. And it's like, you know, you just got to kind of figure out something very quickly. And so it kind of leads to this thing that I think happens called the college box theory. Let me explain how that works. I think that the minute that a parent, specifically these old niggas I'm talking about, have positioned a Black kid to believe that, you know, as far as their success and all that, that's predicated on them going to college and making something of themselves, they already have somewhat doomed them into being off code. And the reason why I say that is because they already have kind of locked them into this idea that their main mission is not to start a business. It's not to be an investor. It's not to do anything that's going to be financially different than, you know, just going to the job and working for somebody who doesn't like for them. So doesn't like them. They more so try to focus on like how they can get to that job as quickly as possible. So now they're stuck in college where they're the only times that they can even do anything that's related to pro-Blackness whatsoever is if they kind of hang around the fraternities and sororities like the Divine Nine, and you know, that's that. Or if they try to put on an event at a Black organization, which again, there's a glass ceiling there. But outside of that, I mean, it's just the incubator for a bunch of people who are really trying to, I guess, fulfill this mission of working for white people when they get out. And then and then even for like a lot of Black women, it kind of turns a lot of them into these like hyper feminist chicks. So I think it's like almost like an incubator that creates off codeness, you know, because that's what your whole world is. You don't think about racism. You don't think about the outside world. You don't think about the things that are happening to you, although they are already happening to you. So I think that's the first thing I wanted to touch on real quick.
That's a good point, which is why you see a lot of the HBCUs, they come out and their main goal is to join the boule, you know, because they've essentially been programmed in a lot of ways to get that upper class, get that upper class, get to that upper class above all things else. And their agenda is not for the community. Their thing is the upper class. That's the goal. So you do whatever, you say whatever to do it. And they go in kind of wrong. And I do see where you're coming from with that. That makes a lot of sense. And we can clearly tell that that's what's happening.
Most definitely. And I think it's even worse in HBCUs, to be honest with you, because I think that there's a certain mindset with a lot of them that, oh, I'm the epitome of pro-Blackness because I went to a school where there was nothing but Black people there. But a lot of times they're like the main ones who just, like I said, be cooning when they come out of school. So actually, I'll see it more with them.
I agree. And as far as people like throwing brownie points to HBCUs, I'm gonna be honest. HBCUs is not really what it should be right now. It is not what it should be right now. It's almost like it's less of an incubator of Black empowerment and more of an indoctrination system. Because when when people come out of HBCUs, then they're talking about racism and feminism and LGBT stuff. They're all the same. Then this very liberal type of mindset indoctrination of, you know, my pronouns is he, she, them, they, her, like, you know what I'm saying? It turns into that.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right about that. But Yeah, so to go to into kind of my own situation. So I went to college back in 2008, and I actually graduated with a degree in chemical engineering. I have a minor in paper engineering, and then I have a minor in, I'm a triple minor. I also have a minor in mathematics, and I have a minor in chemistry. So when I came out of school, by the way, I wanted to say this too. At my university, which is actually in Michigan, I actually was the only Black person to graduate in that actual program in because I graduated in 2015.
Oh,
And so, when I came out, I was like, because I had been told all the time that it's going to be easy for me to find a job. I'm not going to have too many issues because it's a very high in demand type of degree. And, there's a lot of bragging rights, I guess, that kind of came with that. But then when I actually started trying to find jobs, I actually had a very difficult time. I started off first looking at jobs in Michigan. And when I say that I applied to literally like 300 to 400 jobs, I'm not exaggerating whatsoever. My resume was crisp. I mean, like I was interviewing right, like literally doing everything. And so I would always get all these different pieces of advice from people. Oh, you got to network with people. You got to do this. You got to do that. Tried all that stuff. It's always difficult. And so I had to get to the point where I had to like try different types of jobs in order to fulfill all like the debt, like to try to get rid of the debt that I had. Because when I came out of school, bro, I had like what did I have? I had maybe like 71K in debt.
oh,
So yeah. So I was just like, I don't at a certain point, I'm searching for all these jobs in chemical engineering. I'm like, I'm gonna have to like do something else because there's no way that I'm gonna do this unless I want to keep putting my loans like in like forbearance and whatnot. Because like once you get out of school, I mean, 6 months literally right out the gate, they're like asking you to pay it back unless you want to literally default on it. You want to basically put a hold on it, or like I said, it's a forbearance type of thing. And it's hard because you got that debt pretty much hanging over you. And for me personally, I had to actually, like my first job, I think was like the closest one I think I ever had to something that was chemical engineering related. And even that job, that wasn't like at me actually doing chemical engineering work. Like I was a applications engineer, and that was me doing like more so lab work and that type of thing, which isn't really the same thing as what I did, in school. And so like, I think my point here is that like when I was in school, I was always told about how there were all these opportunities that would be there for me once I got out. I'd be making a whole bunch of money and all this other stuff. And it really wasn't like that, at the end of the day. And even like when I networked, went on LinkedIn, did all this other stuff, like try to connect with other people, still had difficulties. And I think some of it too, bro, is like when you go and you put your Black on these applications, they already know kind of like, who it is who's applying. And if they've already met their diversity quota, they really ain't thinking about you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. There was a thing, a study that came out to back your point up about the racial barriers that we have to face. There was a study that came out some years ago that said applicants with this is what they said, blacker sounding names
Mm-hmm.
are less likely to receive a call back than black folks with like whiter sounding names. So if your name was John, you would have a higher chance of being called back than it was if it was Tyrone.
Mm-hmm.
If your name was as a woman Sarah, you'd have a higher chance than if it was Shaquilla or something like that. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
and your name does not indicate how well you can perform the job whatsoever.
Mm-mm.
But there is this anti-black bias to it. And just off of where you're from, because in their job application, they, where you're from, where you went school, all of that stuff, they kind of tend to indicate how well you will go along with the system.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they feel like, the white supremacists feel as if, well, if a black man named John Brown he might be a little bit more, or John Brown from this HBCU who just learned English, he might be a little bit more compliant with how we want to go than Tyrone Jenkins.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? They
Yeah.
they're looking for almost like a Carlton Banks character.
Yeah,
That's
right.
what they want to fill their quotas with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's a very true point, and it kind of goes into this idea that even if they do get a black man in a lot of these jobs, they'll treat them in a certain way. They'll try to fill them out, and they'll treat them based off of what they see. So I think there is a lot of like screening beforehand and even when you get there, because one thing that I've noticed is that when you're a black man in any corporate space, they try to fill out if you're, kind of like a timid, type of eunuch type of dude, or if you're like a rebel, like somebody who's going to kind of go against the grain. And they'll try to like either if they feel like you're too rebellious, they'll try to snuff you out. If they feel like you're a eunuch, they'll just use you all the time. And they're really looking for that dude they really can like use, because they know he might be talented, but he's just going to go along with everything because he's just happy to just have an opportunity.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you're absolutely right. And they do this even with before college. This is how certain peoples get even the scholarships to go to college. Back in school, sometimes in teachers, they get at certain students, and there are certain students who are just naturally more rebellious, because a lot of teachers, and this goes all the way back to middle school, even before high school, a lot of teachers, they'll get around and they'll throw little disses in like passive aggressive jokes and stuff like that. And they'll notice which students don't have an issue with it and which students do. And the students that do have an issue with it, those are the students that get labeled as problematic. Those are the students that get labeled as difficult to work with, uncooperative, and disrespectful. And those are the students who will call out racism, and they'll get detention, and they'll get suspended and expelled. Those are those students. So it starts from a young age where you essentially realize you have to comply with the system if you want to get anywhere.
Yep.
Even from a young age.
Yeah, most definitely. I think that I think they're testing you, like you said, to see how you react and what you will and like will not take. Because even in like the workplace, they'll do that as well too. And then like if you kind of rebel against those types of things, because like a lot of times they will take these little jabs at you. They'll nitpick and look at every little thing you do. Like, do you eat lunch by yourself? Do you respond to emails in the right way? Did you smile when you got into the meeting? So they do, it translates to work as well too. I think it's all connected.
Yeah, it is. Because they want you to acquiesce to the system.
Yeah.
They want you to be, they have to have a quota, you know what I'm saying? But the black people that they want, they vet them, and there's a filter. They don't just let any and every black person get there. So that's why from the many jobs I've worked, it tends to be, not all the time, but it tends to be a red flag when you see like the black supervisor or the black manager, because I'm all like, 9 times out of 10, you got this position because you was shucking and jiving the whole way through.
Yes, sir. Yep.
That's 9 times out of 10.
Yep. I agree. Especially if so the other thing I see too is I see that especially if it's like a black male manager. With the black women, they kind of, I think that especially between the ages of like 40 to 60, that age range, they especially like them if they're like kind of like mammies. They come in there, they'll like, bring in treats and shit. And then like if they see other like young black men there, they'll like try to embarrass them in front of like the whole group and stuff like that. They really like them as well too. Like the ones that are going to be real sassy towards other people who are black. But then like when it comes to them dealing with their white counterparts or managers, they're kind of subservient and maybe even a little submissive. I see a lot of that as well too.
Yeah. They'll promote them. They know what black people that they like. They know which ones that they like. The ones that when they get around white people, they're talking bad about the other black people.
Yup, exactly.
Those are the ones that they like. The ones that, well, I'm black, but I don't really see race. I don't really care about race. They'll ask you, and then this is something that I've said. They'll ask you, like you said, the vetting process. They'll ask you about like, oh, I remember one time. I'm gonna give an example. I remember one time I was at a job, and on the news they were talking about Trump's statement. He made a statement about immigrants or whatever, and this older white lady, she was all like, wow, that's good. What do you think about that? And then I said, well, it's interesting, but I don't really talk about politics at work. And then I left.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They'll ask you, oh, what do you they're protesting. What do you think about that, Jamal? You know what I'm saying? They'll ask you those questions just to see where you are on the spectrum of rebel and subservient, like you said.
Most definitely. And then like I noticed this too, because I think a lot of us like do kind of play that fence, like that kind of middle ground where we're not really committing to either side. And I noticed that they'll take it a little further, and they'll try to like even like go like dig deeper to see where you're still at. I think they especially do with like young black men, because like they'll try to see like I'm trying to put this in the right way. I feel like they try to do this process I would call like little broing, which is they try to see like if you're young, maybe you just don't know any better. They'll try to show you like the way you're supposed to act, and if you do something that they feel is kind of rebellish, they'll start saying things like, "Oh yeah, you're not a team player," and they'll start saying stuff like that, and then they'll try to point out that you're young and little things like that, which really is that's kind of code word for racism, especially if it's an older white person doing it to somebody who's younger and black. I think I told somebody this the other day, but they'll do little stuff like that even if they see you're kind of playing that fence, because I've seen that before, even like in my own experience.
Another thing, I'm actually glad that you brought that up as far as coaches and everything like that, because were you aware there was a video, like I think it was last year or sometime, of this white coach just screaming and berating at there was this black teenager, black male teenager, screaming at him. Oh, you want to, like, he was literally threatening him. Oh, you want to fight me? He was getting all up in his face, and you gonna fight me? What you gonna do? You ain't gonna do shit. Like, he was like doing all of that, and then he made a video where he was like, yeah, I apologize, I'm gonna step down or whatever. But that's not the first time we've seen that, and we've seen that happening multiple times, where you have white coaches and the athletes, whether it's basketball, football, the athletes are almost like slaves on a plantation, the way these white coaches talk to them and treat them and yell at them. And for a fact it's racial, because you don't see black coaches doing that to white athletes. And that's another form of indoctrination, and to a degree it can go into buck breaking.
Most definitely. I think a lot of times they do stuff like that because they think that they can use like their job or their profession as an excuse as to why they were racist. They can use that to justify the behavior or clear up the accusations that they are racist. So sometimes I think it just gives them an outlet to be racist because they're putting it into coaching or something like that. So I really think that's what that is.
Yeah. Which is why a lot of them like positions of authority. With a lot of, and this is kind of digressing again a lot. That's why a lot of police sign up for it, because internally they have a desire to act out their anti-blackness and their bigotry, which you can't do if you got a desk job, you can't do it. But they like the position of authority. Coaches have authority over the team. So that's what they want to do. And they be all like, hey, I'm yelling at the team, but he's not playing. He missed a pass. So it's not me being bad. He just missed a pass, but they tend to overdo it in the degree that you don't see them doing it with non-black athletes. Especially the white ones.
Absolutely. I do think that's purposeful. I think that they're, like I said, like you said, it's an outlet, and it's a way to kind of cover it up so that they can kind of bring confusion. So when other people see it, some people are like, oh no, that's just a coach being a coach, or that's just a police officer doing their job. So then it becomes a doing their job type of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
A coach is, oh, that's tough love. You can't be so
Yep.
soft. It's tough love.
Yep.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very tricky because coaches at times are supposed to, get firm with the athletes and
Right.
with the team,
Mhm.
because you want the team to get better. Of course, the coach is supposed to do that, but and the coach, and they know that, so the coach knows that, okay, I can push it a little bit. I can push the envelope a little bit, as long as I don't damn near call him the N-word or say
Yeah.
any racial slur. I can almost get away with just being a tough coach.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Most
You know,
definitely.
there are teachers who are like that as well too.
Oh yeah.
Teachers who will over punish, who will put detention in. There are microaggressions. These children,
Mm-hmm.
and of course, at a certain age where you're immature, you feel like everybody's against you at a certain age. But those are small little episodes that all children go through. But these black children who complain like, hey, this teacher has it out for me, they're
Yeah.
not just making that up.
Mm-hmm.
They're not just making that up. And it's this thing of, oh no, you just didn't want to do your work. Oh no, this, oh no, that. They're not doing that to other students. You don't
Mm-hmm.
see white students complaining about black teachers. The very, very rare instance that that's the case.
Yeah.
You don't
Right.
see that.
No, you don't. I think that's because there's a certain level of at least with the black teachers of desire to see, their like, different kids like succeed. I think that they're more hands-on a lot of times too. So you don't really get a lot of complaints from, like white kids, even when they have like black teachers. But what I think also too with these white teachers, like if they have black students, there's not really what's the word I'm looking for? There's not really a conversation about like nuance. The idea that, they're growing up and they're being taught in a system of white supremacy. They're not going to say all of that, right? They're just going to do things that, other white supremacists would do in that position. They're not going to, basically say that, hey, it's better for a black teacher to teach a black student. They're not going to, do all that. So it's going to confuse like these students when they grow up and they get older.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's definitely true.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why it's important for black teachers, and then black teachers who are pro-black, black teachers who do have a black agenda, because you just being a black teacher doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to treat these children the way they need to be treated, or teach these children how they need to be treated or learn.
Right. That's true. That's very true.
Even though
I'm sorry, go.
Even though it's more likely that you will, but it doesn't guarantee it.
Yeah, right. I was going to say, yeah, because there are a lot of like black teachers who are really just kind of like going along with the system. They just want a job, so they're just doing whatever they got to do. Yeah. And there is no like desire for black empowerment. So that does happen. You're right.
I think that how I feel like what we need to do as far as solutions, if we want to talk about solutions, I feel like a big issue, and this is a really big problem in like public schools in Chicago, that a lot of people don't talk about for whatever reason. A big problem is the fact that, like you said, certain students might need a little bit more attention, and they might need a little bit more, hands-on or whatever the case is. And teachers do well, and the student learns faster. They're more active in class. They increase their likelihood of participating after class and things like that when they feel like they're being paid attention to. We have to understand these are children. Children want to be paid attention to. Just human beings in general. We're just human. That's human nature. Human beings want to be paid attention to, especially children. Children want to be paid attention to, especially by a teacher who acts to some degree almost like a third parent.
Yeah,
you're with your teachers for 8 hours a day, every single day, Monday through Friday, for years and years and years. So they're almost as if they're like a third parent to you. To a degree, they're a parental figure to you, to a degree. So you're going to want attention and approval from your teacher.
Yeah.
And when the kid doesn't get that, the kid feels really disconnected.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have a classroom and there's a bunch of kids, you got 25, 30 kids in a single classroom. A teacher can only teach for what, an hour, even if you stretch it to an hour and a half. How is the teacher going to be able to pay adequate amount of attention to each of those students in an hour and a half? And you have to finish this textbook, get through all of the chapters by the end of the semester. Otherwise, you're going to get in trouble by the school and the principal. You have to follow the school's curriculum. Even if you get to tweak it a little bit, you got to still follow it. You're not going to be able to really do your job, even if you really want to. So there does need to be a sense of, I feel like what would really be a big help is to lower the number of students in a classroom.
Yeah, I agree with that. What I was gonna say is that I think a lot of us, now that we know about like how crappy the education system has been, and then some of the other little agendas and things like that they try to throw in, now today, if you know what I mean. I think that a lot of people want to homeschool their kids like early on, so that they're getting the things that they feel they need to get. And I understand that, and I respect that being a thing. And that actually leads to what I was going to say is a solution, which is we almost to some extent have to go outside of the formal education system itself. And let me kind of elaborate on what I mean by that. So when I think about the type of stuff that I do, when I talk about media images and I talk about the things that you may see in televised media, the one thing that I realize is that the images that you see aren't just there to entertain you. They're also there to educate you as well, too. So I think that it's important for us to kind of look at not just what is the kid learning or not learning while they're in school, but what are they either learning or not learning while they're at home and they're looking at a television screen. So when I think about blur content or any content at all, I'm like, what can we do as foundational Black Americans or just Black people in general? What can we do to try to reverse the messages and the things like that that our kids are seeing, when they look at television? What things can we do, or what things can we create that can, teach them with the stuff that they watch? And that's why, for me, one of the big things that I want to do is have my own comic book brand at some point, and then eventually I want to have my own platform, like the Cool Colas Network. And, I'm working on that. But the reality is that I want something that's pro-Black and trusted, where there's different types of content that's coming out of it. So there's entertaining things that you see, like superhero shows, things like that. But there's also like documentaries. There's also, other really important things that are being produced that can be an outside source of education for kids, because a lot of times they're going to see these things, and a lot of the images they already see on TV are teaching them, how to behave socially to a certain extent, or the way to think. And so we can be a counter force, but we have to be, the individuals who want to produce our own content that actually shows these different messages that educate them properly.
Yeah, you're right. And I salute you for that, because I see you're coming out with books and stuff like that to educate the parents and to educate society on that stuff. And I feel like that's very necessary, because it is going to come. The only solution is going to really come from an independent source, a grassroots source. They're not going to change, clearly, and we shouldn't really expect them to. Malcolm X said you would be a fool to have your enemy raise your children. That's what a fool. Now, that's probably not what he said verbatim. That's what he meant when he said it. I can't think of the exact words, but it's foolish to do that. We do need another solution outside of that. So for the parents who are doing homeschool, and I understand homeschool can be a challenge for certain parents, especially if you're on a certain income level, because if both of the parents are going to have to work, who's going to be at home raising the kid? Teaching the kid, and that has to happen every day, not just one day I can take off. So it's a challenge. I still think even if you can't do it, there still needs to be like after school to a degree.
Yeah,
Or
right.
even if you come home at 4 o'clock,
Mhm.
and the kids are already home, then y'all study till about 5 o'clock or something like that, or y'all go through extra reading for about 5 o'clock, or extra homework or math work or something like that till about 5 o'clock. Or
Mhm.
you kind of because school is programming, so you
Yeah.
have to have your at home, your family programming. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying?
Yeah.
Just maybe a couple hours a day, or on the weekends or something like that.
Mhm.
Just to fit it in there, find a way to fit it in there. You know what I'm saying? I feel like a lot of people can find a couple hours, a few hours a week, or on the weekends,
Mhm.
or something like that to fit that in there. And another thing you said, we do need our own media source. We do need cartoons. We need cartoons. Kids are always going to watch cartoons.
Yep.
At our age, we are like, oh no, we need more documentaries. Okay, we do, but a 7-year-old is gonna want to watch a funny cartoon. So, and
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong intrinsically with a funny cartoon, but let the funny cartoon not have propaganda, not have like little agendas in it. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Let the funny cartoon have a positive and a pro-black message to it. You know what I'm saying? Or a nice story that tells a continuous story, a series of stories that tell continuous stories.
Most
The
definitely.
only comic books that people read are Marvel and DC comic books, and they have their little agendas to it. You barely see any black characters, and then the black characters, they gotta and you talk on this on your profile often. They either gotta have super strength or electric powers, or you know what
Yep.
I'm saying. They're fit into a box,
Mhm.
while you got this vast array of powers when it comes to the white characters. You know what I'm saying? So
Yep.
um and that psychologically lets you know something too. The
Mhm.
black characters are always fit into this box, or you're the tech guy behind the counter and the white guy's out there saving the day.
Yep.
It's psychological programming as well too, even in comic books. So we
Mhm.
need every avenue of entertainment, because like you said, Neely Fuller Jr., when he was talking about the areas of human activity, um entertainment, I think, is one.
Yeah, it is.
So, and yeah, entertainment is one. It's a
Mhm.
form of human activity.
Mhm.
So we need to get into that field as well too.
Yep. Yeah, and that goes back to what I was saying too about like a lot of these areas intertwining. And I think that when you look at education, you look at entertainment, they're actually they're some of the ones that intertwine the most. And that's why I say like even when you're looking at like television, it isn't just a source of entertainment, it's also a source of education, because you are, like you said, being programmed to believe a lot of the messages that are being shown. And that's not even just for kids, that's adults as well too. If you see a lot of these things over and over again, you're going to start to believe the messages that are being told to you are positive, or things that should resonate with you as well too, or like you're learning something. Which is why I think it's a problem that these things get shown over and over again, because even we absorb those things and then teach our kids the things that we see on television. So that's why I said it's actually a form of education, but it's not really like crafted like that, because again, these agendas and messages and things they try to put in it are really hidden.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And like, even when I had that thing on Instagram, a lot of these things, these topics can bleed over so easily into other topics, because they're so interconnected.
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
entertainment and stuff is so interconnected in that.
Yeah.
I also want to say too, there was, to go back to what you said earlier. You said black people are not taught their true self,
Yep.
who we really are.
Hmm.
And I feel like, as far as us being foundational black Americans and us starting to learn more about our history, what we've done, our inventions, our contributions to society, even our indigenous history as well, that stuff was not taught at all. This is
Hmm.
this is starting to become a thing, but that stuff was really not taught. It was only slavery. Malcolm X. What they didn't even teach about Malcolm X. It was really Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, and then that's it.
Yeah, I was about to
You
say
know
that.
what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And now we're starting to learn that, and it's a sense of pride and accomplishment that a lot of Black students are having going into school. It used to be a thing, and I'm sure you remember, it used to be a thing where being pro-Black in school was a thing you got made fun of.
Yeah, most definitely.
So now it's starting to become the opposite, which is a really good thing. The social consciousness, just the consciousness and like your mind, as far as Black society, especially foundational Black Americans, but Black people in general in America are really rising, and that's a beautiful thing where the pro-Black is not a taboo thing. It's not a thing to be made fun of. It's actually the pendulum. I think I'm saying that right.
Yeah, you said it right. Pendulum.
Yeah, it's swung the other way. So now if you're not pro-Black, you're kind of looked at kind of funny. People are looking at you kind of funny.
Yeah. Now they'll try. Now a lot of those intersectional community people, a lot of them they'll try to make fun of it still today because they'll call you hoteps and all this other stuff still. So they're the only ones that I think still have a problem with it. But for the most part, you're right, and that's why one of the things that I've said on my platform is when you think about pro-Blackness, it's not supposed to have a look and it's not supposed to have a sound. It's a mentality. You don't have to be wearing a dashiki and like the kente cloth and all that and the kufi. You don't have to do all that to be pro-Black. You just have to have the mindset of somebody who's going to put Black people first in every regard. That's really all it's about. And then your actions have to show that.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Another thing, there was a study that was done too, and this is, I think, is going to be really helpful in the future. It was I think 100 Black students took the ACT test. Prior to taking the test, they were all similar in their education, all scoring around the same as far as test. Prior to taking the test, they broke it up, and 50% of the students had to put their name, date, and they had to put their race on the test. And the other 50% didn't have to do that. And what the study found is that the 50% that put their race on the test did worse than the 50% that didn't have to put their race on the test.
That's crazy.
So it was interesting, and they're all Black. So it was very interesting because to me that it shows the psychological self-hate that we have. And I think a lot of people, when we talk about the self-hate, I think people view that as I hate my Blackness and I hate everything Black. It's a lot more subtle than that. I think like the system of white supremacy teaches all Black people to hate themselves, and it's so ingrained in society that you just automatically learn it, and it's something that you have to unlearn as you grow up. You have to unlearn to kind of hate yourself. Like, even if you don't know that you do, just the self-doubt. I'm sure that those students, they wouldn't know that they would do worse, but just being reminded that they're Black triggered a level of like self-doubt in them. A level of insecurity in them that caused them to do worse.
Most definitely. And I think it also doesn't help that going back to the old niggas thing, it doesn't help that a lot of them have a lot of, as people say, internalized racism. So like a lot of times when you grow up, you know, at least from my experience, I grew up like in the Detroit area. And a lot of times, like my people, they would watch the news all the time, and they would talk about how, like, you know, all Black people do out here, all they do is kill each other, yada 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 yada. Which obviously that would make sense if you were in a city like Detroit. Like, why that would be sensible to most people. But it shows that was like the main focus was that you know, looking at like the degenerate things that Black people would do, and then attributing that to us as a whole. Yet we have all types of Black people who've done, you know, great things, invented great things, and are like scholars and prodigies and everything like that. So I think there's a level of being taught that too from that, like I said, that old nigga generation as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
The whole like black people can't do right, essentially. Is just the black people can't do. Black people always messing up. Black people are our own worst enemies. It's always something negative when you're talking about black people. And when black people do something positive, there's several black business owners, black doctors, black lawyers, black engineers, black dentists, black judges, black all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. But then when a black person robs a liquor store, it's like, man, we can never do right. You know what I'm saying? That's all we talk about, you know.
Yeah, we got to do better.
Yeah. We are our worst enemy. You know what I'm saying? That's what we get. Nobody else gets that though, but we get that.
Yeah.
And that really does play into the psyche and the insecurity. Every time you hear the word black, it's brought up in a negative context.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That does. We need to change the narrative of blackness. You know, to where psychologically you don't see when you have to write your race down. I feel when you write your race down and you put black, it should make you do better in the test.
Yeah.
All things considered, but through white supremacy, it makes you do worse because you're constantly bombarded with programming that makes you feel like black is negative.
Yep. Most definitely. No, you're totally right about that. It's either that or like it's either we have to change the narrative because it's so negative, or it's that we have no culture. Like that's what it always comes down to.
Yeah. Either that we're just like lost people who don't belong to nobody or nowhere.
Yeah, like an identity crisis. That's the one I've been hearing a lot lately. Like we have an identity, like especially foundational Black Americans. I've been hearing that a lot where a lot of those white supremacists or speculated ones, they'll say like we're like foundational Black Americans just are Africans that miscellaneous Africans that don't know where in Africa they come from. I've been hearing that a lot too.
Yeah. I saw on a Twitter today actually. Somebody said Black people want to be Native American so bad because they hate their blackness. Oh my God. And I'm like, okay. My thing is with that, you're implying that Black people can't be Native.
Right.
That's what that implies, that Black people can't be Native, and that's not true. That's not true to any degree. You know what I'm saying? And it's this thing of we believe it's this like almost this bias to believe that no Black people were here prior to the slave trade. And even though common sense and research and studies and data and you being able to find skulls of Black people who were here prior to 1619, even though we have all of this evidence, people still have this bias to believe what they were taught by white people.
Yep.
I feel like it goes into and this can go into many different conspiracies and stuff like this, but there's this thing where if white people don't confirm it, it's not true.
Oh yeah. I wouldn't even say that's a conspiracy. That's a regular occurrence in my opinion. You know, and it kind of goes back to that idea that you know how they always like to call foundational Black Americans pretendians. It's like they're almost upset that, you know, we're claiming that we built America because we know we did. We know our ancestors built America from the ground up. I think that they're trying to make it seem like we're attaching our identity to red natives, and that's not what we're saying whatsoever. So they're making up lies to say that we have an identity crisis because of that, and that we're denouncing being African, which, let's be real, everybody is African. Like genetically, we know we're African. You can see that. But when it comes to where we're from, like we're a cultural group that built America. So this is our like home. Yeah.
I don't. And the thing it's a real straw man argument.
Yeah,
that
it
we make
is.
with foundational Black Americans, because we're not saying that there's no ties to Africa. There clearly it is, and nobody's denouncing Africa. But for you to say like we're from Africa, well, hold on, let's be more clear about that.
Yep.
Because if you say we're from Africa, with that same argument that we're from Africa, where's the line? Who isn't from Africa?
Right.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't say everybody is from Africa. So why are you holding us to that standard?
Mm-hmm. And they don't do that with Caribbeans. That's the other thing. They don't do that with Caribbeans and the like Latinas, like the Hispanics who are black. They don't do that same thing. They mainly do it with foundational Black Americans, which is also like hypocritical.
Yes, indeed.
Mm-hmm.
They can say, "Hey, where you from? I'm from Jamaica. I'm a Jamaican." Okay, fine. If you say where you from, I'm America. I'm American. No, where are you really from? Like, no,
like America.
My nationality is American. My parents, their parents, their parents, their parents. Like, come on now.
Right. You want to say like what? Georgia? What the hell you want to hear? What you mean? Yeah.
And a lot of that stuff goes into, and I feel like when you learn about even your ancestry, just going back into your ancestry, that gives a lot of Black youth a sense of esteem.
Yep.
A sense of self-respect, because let's be honest, it's very dehumanizing and degrading what we've been through in this country.
Yep.
And the narrative that we were enslaved from the continent of Africa and we came over and then we just built the country for white folks and we didn't run anything and we don't really belong in America, because that's really what they're saying. Yep. We don't really belong in America, but then Africa, do you really belong in Africa either?
Yeah.
Like, we're just these lost people
who
really kind of don't belong anywhere. That plays negatively into the psyche of a lot of Black youth.
Most definitely. And I think it doesn't help too, like, even when there is something that, we are celebrating that deals in Black empowerment, like, for example, a Juneteenth or that type of thing. Notice, like, even the colors, like, will show up different. Like, the colors will be like red and green and black instead of it being like red, white, and blue, like it should be, with the Juneteenth flag. I think they do that to kind of conflate this idea that anything that's empowering about us is related to Africa itself, and that's it. Like, not the foundational Black American culture, but just Africa. Like, you have to go back to that, like that Pan-Africanist ideal.
Yeah. As if there's not been a culture that's been built here.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't like every single thing that's pro-Black in the culture and everything like that. It is credited to Africa.
Yep.
All of the colors that we use, they're credited to Africa. They're symbols of African flags, and this is no diss to Africa. This is no diss to Africa, but we are of a different nation.
Yeah,
we have different cultures, we have different customs, different colors, all that.
Yep.
And it's not anti-Black. It doesn't show a level of self-hate for us to acknowledge the fact that we are of a different nation. Jamaicans, they don't use colors or they don't use a flag from Africa. They have their own flag. Haitians, they have their own flag. They wouldn't wave a flag from Africa. They will wave their own flag. So if we're waving any one of these flags, these are our flags.
Yep. Yeah. I saw like a tweet one time, and I was just like it shows what you were saying is very true. Because I saw a tweet where somebody was like, all of a sudden you niggas are proud Americans. And it's like, we've always been proud of Americans. What the hell you mean? We're proud of our ancestors. We're proud of like the things that Black people have done in this country. So yeah, we're proud of Americans because we're foundational Black Americans. So I saw somebody do that. I think the person was the Caribbean or something like that who shared that tweet. But I was like, that's what I'm talking about. Them trying to act like we should be ashamed of the fact that we're foundational Black Americans.
Yeah. We shouldn't, and that doesn't mean that we have to shuck and jive and act like America doesn't have any problems.
Yeah, of course.
We can acknowledge the fact that America has problems, but America does have a lot of great potential. Yep. America has become, in many aspects, not all aspects, America is a great country in many aspects because we made it great. Yeah. And if you want to talk about the flaws of America, those are the flaws of the world, because the whole world is governed by white supremacy. So that's not a uniquely American thing. You know what I'm saying?
I've told a lot of people that before because they'll say America's so bad, America's so bad. I'm like, America's not bad. The white supremacy in America is what makes it bad.
Yeah.
You know, like I've told people that before because it's like I'll hear people like demonize like the actual country, and I'm like, yeah, every country literally has its problems. You won't find a country in this world that won't. But I think the problem is that because it's governed by white supremacy and the whole world is, a lot of those bad things shine and you see them, you know. So that's the real problem.
Yeah, that is.
Mm-hmm.
It's a country that we should have pride in, and that also goes into our self-esteem. The fact that we are having pride, the fact that Black people aren't ashamed to wear red, white, and blue.
Yep.
You know, as we used to. Because let's be honest, it used to be a thing of if a Black person had an American flag, you was kind of looking at them sideways, like, ooh, nigga,
yep.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So, and that came from a place of America has always mistreated us, and I understand why we felt that way now. But the way I said to talk about like the flag and the colors, I feel like the way we as Foundation Black Americans, I feel like as the way we view America is different from how white society views America. Our vision of America is different. When we wear red, white, and blue or wherever, or we use those colors for the FBA flag or whatever, we are looking at it differently than how they're looking at it. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So when we say, hey, I love America, it's for a very different reason than when a white person says, I love America. You know?
Yeah.
And the fact that we can have a sense of pride in being Black American, in our history and culture and all of that, just acknowledging the fact that we do have a culture, because years ago they was telling us we didn't. You know, so just acknowledging that gives us a sense of esteem for ourselves and our people. That's very important for the youth in school.
Agreed.
I feel, and I'm sure you're gonna agree with me on this. I feel like, because they have other flags, we're not dissing nobody, but they have other flags that are not nationally recognized in schools that hang up. If you know, you know. I feel like there needs to be Black American flags. I would love to see one of these flags hanging up in the school. You know what I'm saying?
I agree. And it's a dope flag too. Like the look.
Just that being acknowledged, even if it's like just for Black History Month or just around Juneteenth or something like that. Just the fact that knowing that you have a flag, because I'm not gonna lie, the FBA flag that came out relatively recently, the Black American Heritage flag, it came out a while ago. People didn't know about it though.
Hell, people didn't even know we had a language. They didn't even know we had like Tutnese. So and I'm sorry, go ahead.
Can you imagine, like how impressive is that for us to have our own language like that?
Oh, I know. It's really cool. And that's why I think I agree with your statement that those types of things should be shown to our kids, because I think it would instill like that sense of pride. But of course, because again, a lot of these schools, or pretty much all of them, are dominated by white supremacy. They're never going to let something like that fly. And it kind of goes back to what I've said too about entertainment. When I look at media, they don't want to see they don't want to show a lot of powerful images of Black people or Black families. I think that especially Black families, because they don't want, a Black kid who's watching this to desire this when they get older, and then they start to stand up against white supremacy. And I think that's the problem is that the image of a Black family just in general presents this idea that you have a desire to be with somebody else who's Black and to create more Black kids. So I think that they want to try to avoid that as much as possible. And that's why they don't show a lot of us in like healthy relationships on TV, or, they show us in a lot of interracial relationships. And that's no disrespect to anybody who does that. I'm just saying, like, they show a lot of these things because they don't want those symbols to permeate into the minds of kids. And they want to do that as well.
Yes. I fully agree. I fully agree. So it does start with us. It starts with the things that we can do. Like, you're doing what you can do as far as creating different entertainment forms of entertainment, because a
Yep.
comic book is a form of entertainment, you know.
Oh yeah.
Cartoon, that's a form of entertainment. All of these things are forms of entertainment that kids can be interested in, you know what I'm saying? Because one thing about it too, and I feel like is a thing as far as entertainment goes, I feel like a lot of people who are conscious and do mean well, they it's going to be interesting to say this, they do a little bit too much when it comes to like the entertainment thing. Like, you have to understand, a kid is trying to see giant robots fight each other, you know what I'm saying? A kid is not, when you go like too deep into the whole, you know, too deep into the consciousness, I don't want to say like the almost like the Hotep-ish, but when you go too deep into it and it's not subtle, it takes away from the entertainment.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
I definitely get what you're saying. It almost turns into like a bunch of like plebiscite babble that they're not really interested in. I get what you mean. Yep. And that's why I said, like, I think the thing that we have to do is normalize pro-blackness as a thing that anybody could be, no matter what you look like, no matter what you sound like. Because what everybody is going to think is they're going to think that whenever you say like pro-black, conscious, or whatever, is that person is literally going to be wearing dashiki, they're going to be wearing the kente cloth, they're going to be wearing the African colors and everything like that. And that, it doesn't have to be like that, you know? So I think that's why we have to normalize pro-black as a mindset more than it is an aesthetic and a look and plebiscite babbling, like you said.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. If I could ask you, what are two things to summarize our conversation?
Yeah.
What are two things that you can say, or we can do like one of each, as far as the school K through 12? What is something that you would recommend can be done to fix the outcome and to bring a better outcome in K through 12? And then my second question, as far as the college goes, as far as Black people going into college, what is something that you think would be or should be done to increase the success rate of Black people going in and leaving college?
Oh, there's so many things I can think of, Afro. I'm going to try to number it down. K through 12, I would say the main thing that comes to mind is invest money into building your own schools, making them private schools, and then having Black kids, I guess, like become students, and then implementing your own programs and whatnot. I know there's certain regulations you got to follow and whatnot, but that would be one thing I would say for the K through 12. And then when you have certain programs and certain courses, you know, implement some of the things I talked about, which would be, you know, the self-awareness thing, and then some of the life skills. And, you know, you can still have math and reading and things like that, but like, you know, the core things that we've always been missing, since that's something that these regular schools aren't going to give to us unless we find a hidden gem. As far as colleges go, I would just say avoid them shits altogether. Go ahead and, you know what I mean? Like, I would say, like, just get a trade. If you plan to have, if you want a kid to really go to college, if you're somebody who is an investor, maybe have scholarships for, you know, like Black kids, like specifically, maybe we should have like a fund where like FBAs can like kind of get scholarships if they're going to go to college for a specialized thing, like, you know, to be a lawyer or a doctor, that type of thing. I think that would be beneficial. And other than that, I would say, like, again, you know, use your money wisely, use it towards building businesses or building something that is going to be lucrative for us in the long run, so we're not an underclass economically.
I fully agree. I agree with everything. And I think that's a good idea about the things. Also too, before we leave, I did want to touch on this. Yeah, I almost forget it. Affirmative action.
Yeah, right.
We brought that up. Affirmative action. I brought that up in my live, and I almost forgot. I'm glad I didn't, because I'm glad you're here to help me discuss this. Affirmative action has been weaponized specifically against black people,
Mm-hmm.
even though the data shows that white women are the main beneficiaries of affirmative action.
Yep.
And it's this narrative that Asians are being discriminated against because of black people.
Mm-hmm.
Because black people are slow, but they need to get into college because of affirmative action. So Asians got to take a backseat, even though they deserve it more.
Mm-hmm.
You know. So I definitely wanted to address that before we close out. Before I forget, I should have brought it up earlier. So let me ask, why do you think, or in your words, why is it that affirmative action is only, because I've only hear it ever be weaponized against black people when it
Mm-hmm.
applies to literally everybody else, and
Mm-hmm.
everybody else gets it to some degree, especially white women?
I think it gets weaponized against black people because I think that they're trying to find a means to show that we're getting like handouts, and that like although we've been doing all this quote unquote begging, that there are things out there that are supposed to help us, but then they're hiding the idea that a lot of these other groups, these buffer groups, and even white women, like you said, these minorities, they're actually the ones taking advantage of it. So I think that they do that to make it seem like there are things that are being done for blacks. Look at them. They took a hold of affirmative action. A lot of them ended up in schools, and a lot of them are doing even worse than like people like the Asians and things like that. But really what they're doing is they're using that, I think, as an excuse to not do anything or to make atonement for black society. So think about, like, for example, like the reparations movement and things like that. We're talking about how we need cash payments. A lot of us foundational Black Americans who are into that say that all the time. But if they what they'll do is use those as a ways to say that they've given us some forms of reparations by saying, oh, look, you guys got affirmative action. Now you have access to education because you all were too stupid to be able to, like, you know, get into college, you know, without that being a thing that helped you or aided you. So I just think that it's a way for them to, you know, use be deceptive. Because if you think about it, white supremacy, it operates in nothing but deceit. So the whole idea is to make it seem like we're taking advantage of something that actually isn't helping us like they're saying it is.
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to bring that up before we get on to your two recommendations. Now,
Yep.
as far as your recommendations, as far as the school, I definitely agree.
Mm-hmm.
Even if, and I understand it can be very challenging depending on your circumstance.
Yep.
But I feel like it is not just, I feel like it is your responsibility as the parent to make sure you do what you can to put the best outcome forward for your child. It is your responsibility despite the hardship. So even if, like you say, you can create your own almost like private school thing, you and some other people from the community, y'all can meet up like they have in church Sunday school or something like that. Y'all can meet up and y'all can be like, hey, every Saturday morning we're gonna come here, we're gonna have an extra class, and we're gonna just teach about our culture, we're gonna just teach about history, and things like one day a week, if that's what you can, a couple hours a day, if that's what you can, you know, you can find little things and then you can start building on those things. So maybe the teacher might be Mr. Johnson today, and then it might be Mrs. Smith tomorrow or something like that. And then it can become a thing. And this is the community coming together to create a solution. So I fully agree with that. I think that that's a genius idea.
Most definitely.
As far as colleges, they're getting more expensive than they've ever been, and they're becoming more useless than they've ever been. And that's just the reality. Some people are going to get upset. It is. Getting a trade is going to be 9 times out of 10, or I might say 8, unless you're going to become like a doctor. But 8 times out of 10 is going to be a better outcome for you. It's going to be a better outcome. But go into it with the understanding of, I'm not trying to be an employee, especially you as a foundational Black American in this country. We need more Black ownership just in general. So you need to go into school with the thing of, I need to do something that's not only going to empower me and my family, I need to do something that's going to empower me, my family, in my community.
Yeah, most definitely.
So with that being said, you wouldn't go in there and just lollygag or whatever, or even go for the boule thing, because you know you are responsible for your community's success as well too. You have a duty to your community, which I also agree with your point. I think it was very genius. The scholarship.
Yeah.
I feel like we, as the Foundation of Black American Community, we need to be funding our own scholarships, especially like for special trades or special fields and stuff like that. We can be doing that. It don't take that much work either, to be honest.
Most definitely. I was gonna say, and I actually recently gave a speech on this, actually on the last day of February, like this past year. And one of the things I talked about is how when it comes to college, it's not a real form of Black excellence. And the reason why is because a lot of people come out of college, even if they are successful, even if they do get a job, because there are some people who do benefit, they don't really do anything for anyone else but themselves. And really, we do, like you said, have a responsibility to help the community as a whole and to do something productive. So I look at it the same way I look at how it is if you're already in a job and you're not working for yourself. Your main objective, if you care about pro-Blackness, you care about Black empowerment, is to take your skills or whatever skills you may either learn on the job or whatever school you went to, if they actually taught you some outside of theory, which is rare. You need to take those skills and then create something of your own, whatever things that you can get, whatever, I think Tariq said this, whatever game you could soak up, you want to take that and you want to be able to use that to do something effective and create something that is going to benefit Black society. So I think that that's what it really ends up boiling down to.
Yeah, I definitely agree. What are some, if you was to initiate your scholarship idea, what would be like some of the trades or the specialties that you would fund a scholarship for?
Well, that's a great question. Some of the things that I probably would do, I would have like funds for maybe like electricians, funds for people who would do different like plumbing and that type of work, like services that people will always need no matter what, especially like with everybody having houses and whatnot. I would have funds for people who would want to eventually go into these practices themselves as well, themselves, not just like work for somebody, but like they actually like would maybe write an essay to say what their actual plan is afterwards. And if that plan means that they're creating their own business, maybe they're teaching other people how to do trades. It would be for an individual who would get a specific trade so that they can use it to either, again, benefit Black people or to create their own school or that type of thing where they're helping us specifically. So I would want to, I guess there would be a requirement, and it would be like there would be an essay where you're writing what your actual mission is, and it has to resonate with what we would like to see.
Okay. And I agree. I mean, if this is the way to make sure you're getting back. You're giving back to the community. People aren't just talented and then running off. They should be giving back to the community. There is a debt that you need to pay back to the community. So how is this going to ultimately help the community? Not even you, but just the community.
Exactly. And I think it's a good thing for us to like maybe like vet what that mindset is like before you are somebody who is going to get one of these trades. So that we just kind of know like where your head is at and what you plan to do that's actually constructive. Because like you said, you don't want to just give it away to somebody who they're just trying to be, a success just for themselves. And because we have too much of that right now.
Yeah. I definitely agree. Everybody's out for themselves. It's best man standing. It's, what I'm saying? It's, it's this thing, and it's really bad. I feel like the sense of community going into higher education is really messed up, and then K through 12 is one thing, and then college is just the stamp of indoctrination. You know what I'm saying? You have a whole bunch of black people in the I'm not sure exactly how well you know about like the fraternities and sororities and all of beta kappa gamma whatever. I don't even know all that stuff. But where do you see pro-blackness resonating from them?
Yeah, and that's another thing, and that's why I brought up earlier that that's like the epitome of the amount of black culture that you'll get a lot of times in these colleges. And it's kind of, ironic that, they're called Black Greeks and blacks, that whole thing, they don't even mix. So that's already weird already. But then, like, you're right, you don't really see a lot of them doing things that are like pro-black, like that specifically advocate for the black community. They may make little small fundraisers and things like that, but overall, you don't really see that. You're right.
Yeah. The indoctrination thing. So I definitely agree with that. And I feel like if we start off if we start off doing everything that we discussed, if we start off having like the after school program things, the community operated and managed after school programming things.
Yeah.
And started teaching the kids young about who you really are and what your people really did, and don't think because you're black you can't do it. There's been black people who genius electricians. We wouldn't have a light bulb had it not been for a black person. We wouldn't have the computers if it wasn't for a black person. We wouldn't have this or this or this if it wasn't for a black person, a black lawyer creating this precedent, or a black doctor doing this phenomenal operation, just to have that self of esteem of yourself and your people and your culture. It goes a long way. And then when you grow up with that, that's gonna really be the foundation, if I can use that term, the foundation for your pro-blackness going into higher education.
Most definitely. And if you really think about all these ideals too, they really, if you think about it, give you a purpose when you're creating a business. So what I mean by that is whenever somebody creates a business, the main objective for that person is to do a service for someone. So that's a good segue into using your business, like your skills that you, I guess, are doing within your whatever business you created, to benefit someone. In this case, that would be Black society. How can I get more people to do, what I'm doing, like who are Black? Like, how can I help them? What can I do that will help, that will put them on and give them the skills that I learned myself? So I think that we need to, like, when we get, create our businesses and whatnot, we have to be able to, I guess, like, have a purpose. And that purpose for us should be to do something for our community. So I think that's that needs to be the focus there. And again, it shouldn't be for yourself. It should be to help others. And in this case, it should be other foundational Black Americans.
Yeah, definitely. I think that we've had a pretty good conversation so far.
I think so too.
I think so. I'm just looking at the time. We've almost been here for 2 hours.
I know. Yeah, I've seen that too.
So it's pretty good. So, in conclusion, do you have any final words before you give out your social media and where people can find you and all of that? Do you have any final words of what we've discussed today? We've had a very good conversation. Do you have any words about anything? And you can take time.
Yeah, most definitely. The last thing that I would just say, and it's kind of like a recap, is when it comes to education, understand that it's not just what you see formally. It's not just going to college. It's not just going to high school. It's also the things that you learn and you experience, and the things that you can learn outside of it. And that's why I always deviate to entertainment. There are ways that you can use entertainment as a tool to educate others and to be able to teach them the things that you want them to know. So we have to get creative in the ways that we do educate others, given the system of education itself doesn't really do us the justice that we deserve.
Yes. I fully agree. Fully agree. So where can people find you?
Most definitely. So you can find me at Cool Colas on Instagram. That is my main bread and butter. That's where you'll see all my content, all the posts that I put out, and these analysis and things like that. And I talk about a lot of other things as well too. I also have a YouTube channel myself, Cool Colas. You can find me there as well too. I do also have a Twitter page, same thing, Cool Colas. Literally every social media is Cool Colas, y'all. So that's where you can find me. And I have a website, coolcolas.com.
Okay. Briefly before you go, remind us again about your book that's coming out.
Most definitely. So my book is going to be called the Pro-Black Blurred Series, Exposing Anti-Black Media Tropes the Blurred Way. Now, with this book, the main objective is for me to talk about the anti-Black tropes and media images that you see on television. So I take it from the perspective of a Black nerd. So I look at like a lot of like comic movies and shows, but I also talk about a lot of regular shows and movies as well too. And I take those examples and relate them to real life. And I use my own life and the things that have happened, in my own life as an example to show how they have impacted, people in real time. So this book essentially is going to be a mix of historical nonfiction, and it's also going to be autobiographical as well too.
Okay. I'll definitely be looking forward to it.
Most definitely. I gotta let you know when I put it out.
Yeah, and then will you put it out? We'll work on something. You'll be, I guess, back, and we can talk about it, and we can, discuss it even further then.
Most definitely. Sounds good to me.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you. Brothers and sisters, all of his social media is in the description below, so you can just go follow him on Instagram. That's what he said his main thing is. If you have any questions or anything like that, or want to check out his work, his main thing is Instagram, and then he has his Twitter and YouTube. So follow him on all of that. But definitely his Instagram. So thank you very much, brother. I appreciate you, and he will be back.
Most definitely. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you. Well, brothers and sisters, that was our good brother, Cool Colas. He's been with us before. If you guys haven't seen that, I will put that in the description below. The podcast we did with him and our brother Torian. We had a very, very beneficial conversation. We really, really did. I hope you enjoyed it. He will be back. Definitely make sure you guys follow him on all of his social media. And I want to know what you guys think about this entire conversation in the comment section below. Also, you should be following me on my social media pages, which is Afro Elite on Instagram and then The Afro Elite on Twitter. Please do not leave without hitting that like button, that subscribe button, that notification bell, share button, comment. All of that helps the reach and the growth of the channel. And for everything you all do, I sincerely appreciate you. Thank you so very much. And now, with that being said, my brothers and my sisters, be one salute to every single last one of you all. Of course, you all have a good one.